Hello and welcome to Sports Fan Entertainment. 32 teams, 32 days, and today we're talking about the Chicago Bears, a team that went 12-4 last season and only a missed field goal away from moving on to the next round of the NFC playoffs. Came up just a hair short, as Chicago Bears fans know so well. Can they improve for this upcoming 2019 NFL season and take that next step? We're going to talk about it today. So with that said, let's start by talking about the Chicago Bears' strength, and I'm just going to say their defense. Okay, the entire defense, it is absolutely stacked. We'll start by talking about the defensive line and the linebackers. How about Khalil Mack? I mean, what a trade that was. The Chicago Bears made the trade for Khalil Mack last season. And remember, I actually liked the Chicago Bears when I made my season preview for the team last season, and I felt they were just one move away, and then they traded for Khalil Mack, and I was like, all right, I'm all in on the Chicago Bears. Give me them for a 10-6 season, and they even surpassed that, going 12-4. It was absolutely fantastic. So Khalil Mack and his addition, that was a great addition. How about Roquan Smith, who had a decent rookie campaign? We hope that he continues to improve upon that. And outside of that, Eddie Goldman, he's still on the defensive line. He's still making an impact. Akeem Hicks, he's still a big-time player for the Chicago Bears. This defense is absolutely stacked in the front seven. If you look back, you look at the cornerbacks, you look at the safeties. What a year last year for Kyle Fuller. I mean, this was a guy that we thought was on the edge. Like, is this guy going to be able to remain on the Chicago Bears roster? We were so disappointed with him in his NFL career pretty much up until that point. And you always saw that he was actually a decent player, but he had problems staying on the field, problems being consistent, some problems with penalties. And then last year, he absolutely turned it on, came down with a litany of turnovers, was a consistent cornerback for this team, combined with the pass rush in front of him. I think that was the real secret, the real key for him. Once there was a true and legitimate pass rush in Chicago, it allowed him to really flourish. Now, if for some reason the pass rush isn't what it was last season, I do expect his struggles to kind of creep up again, but I don't project that to be the case, so I expect more of the same from Kyle Fuller. Look at the safety position. How about Eddie Jackson? You have to absolutely love him. My goodness, this guy was an absolute turnover machine last season. You expect more of the same from him. This defense is absolutely stacked in Chicago, and you have to expect more great results from them in 2019. You look at the weaknesses, though, for this football team, and to me, you have to look at, and this might surprise some of you, but the offensive line. Now, the offensive line was fine last season. Don't get me wrong, but I have my concerns moving forward. First of all, I don't think they're a very good run-blocking offensive line right now. Jordan Howard was fantastic in his rookie season, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. And then after that, he couldn't even break 4 yards a carry, including last season. Tariq Cohen, he was able to get 4.4 yards per carry, but they have not been a very dominant unit in terms of the run game. Pass defense, they've been fine, but even there, they've only been decent. I've never really said they're one of the top pass blocking units in the NFL. And then when I look personnel-wise, there's not enough ascending players, and there's even players that are going to start really regressing soon, and it's going to be problematic. We look at Bobby Massey at the right tackle position. Okay, this guy has been in the league for a while, and he played well last season, but he's had problematic seasons before. And as he continues to age, I think those problematic seasons are going to arise once again. You look at Kyle Long. Look, we've loved Kyle Long as a Chicago Bear, but his days are numbered as well, and I thought he had actually a disappointing season last year. I expect him to probably take another problematic step back. I like Cody White here. He's the young ascending piece on this offensive line, but then left tackle position, Charles Leno Jr., again, he played well last year, but, you know, is he really one of the best tackles in the NFL? No. So when you look at this entire Chicago Bears team, I think the weakness for this team is this offensive line that only really has one young ascending player that we really like, and some older guys that were just waiting to fall off that cliff, and that really concerns me. Weakness number 2 for the Chicago Bears is actually the tight end position. Now, I like Trey Burton, but I think he's an average starting tight end in the NFL. He was about 19th in the NFL in terms of yards per game, and he's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with him. But that's it, right? There's nothing else at the tight end position for the Chicago Bears. Adam Shaheen doesn't do anything, okay? He barely plays. Last season, only 7 or 8 games played, 48 yards. That's nothing, okay? And we still look at him and we call him Baby Gronk and we expect for him to do something. It's been 2 years now for us expecting him to do something. I'm tired of expecting him. I no longer expect for him to do anything. I'm no longer even gonna think about Adam Shaheen until he actually shows up on the football field. So when you combine an average starting tight end, a fine weapon, don't get me wrong, he's not a bad player, but an average starting tight end with horrible tight end depth, then you have a weakness at the tight end position to me. And still, it's going to be a position that produces. Like, Trey Burton is still going to give you 500-600 receiving yards. You're going to be fine with that. But I'm not sure anyone else at this tight end position is going to give you anything. And for that reason, this is a weakness for the Chicago Bears. The X factors for the Chicago Bears, the quarterback and running back positions. We start with quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. And a lot of people would have expected me to list this as a weakness for this football team. I'm not going to do it. I am a Mitchell Trubisky fan. I have been since day one, since he came into this league. I had him ranked number 1 in that 2017 NFL draft class in terms of quarterbacks. Now, he ain't number 1 thanks to Patrick Mahomes, but I still think he has the ability to prove to be better than Deshaun Watson over time. Not now, but I think he still has that ability. Can he take that step forward this upcoming season? I have my doubts, but it's not because of him. I still have my problems with the Chicago Bears personnel offensively, as I listed with the offensive line and the tight end position, and the receivers aren't great to me. And speaking of another offensive unit, the running backs. I could have listed this as a weakness, but I think it would actually be alright. With Tariq Cohen, we already know what we're gonna get. This is a great receiving back and a guy that when he gets the rock, he averaged 4.4 yards per carry last season. He's not gonna be a bell cow, but he's a great third down back. And he's still going to give you 6, maybe even 700 rushing yards this season. Still going to have a great impact there. Maybe only 500, but still a good impact. And then we have David Montgomery, 3rd round pick out of Iowa State. What is he going to give us? Now, I've heard great things out of OTAs, okay? Great. We always hear great things out of OTAs about 90% of NFL players, okay? If you're hearing positive things out of OTAs and training camp, who cares, okay? You're hearing great things out of the Miami Dolphins, okay? We just can't put too much credence into that. I do think he's going to have a good impact, and you're going to see that in my stat projections. But I have to see it first. So it's an X factor, and if he's great, then the Chicago Bears offense could take a very good step forward, which would be huge for this football team. With that, so we move on to my statistical projections for the Chicago Bears, and we begin with quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I think he's actually going to have around the same stats he had last year because I really don't see the improvement offensively for this football team. 3,600 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and a 92.0 passer rating. Now, I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is worth that 75 quarterback rating that Madden 20 gave him. I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL right now. However, again, I don't think the offensive personnel is really there for him to take that jump statistically. I know a lot of Bears fans are anticipating him playing for over 30 touchdowns, getting his interceptions under double digits. I just don't see that. I see about more of the same, and maybe they may be more of a running team this year. And again, I have my concerns with the offensive line, so I have to project about the same. But I think next year they're going to realize, okay, we need to improve this wide receiver core a little bit. We could get another tight end. We could get some better offensive linemen, and then he'll make that leap. So it's about the same for me. Running back David Montgomery, 180 carries, 800 yards, and 5 touchdowns. This is all right. I do think Tariq Cohen is going to take away from him. I know a lot of Bears fans are anticipating David Montgomery coming down with 1,000 rushing yards, and he certainly could. Don't get me wrong. But, for a rookie running back, I don't want to just project that just because, especially when there's another guy that's already there, and Tariq Cohen, who's very talented in his own right. But I definitely will look out for it, and I think David Montgomery is definitely worth drafting in your fantasy leagues. There's a lot of upside there. And then wide receiver Allen Robinson, 65 catches, 900 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. He disappointed last year statistically, only about 760 receiving yards, which I thought was very interesting. So I think he'll take a step up from that. But as Anthony Miller also takes a step up, I mean, we should expect him to take more of a impact on the offensive end. I think that will limit Allen Robinson, and he still will not reach 1,000 receiving yards like he would definitely like to do. With that, so we move on to my bold predictions for the Chicago Bears. Bold prediction number 1, the Bears offense takes a step back. I think the offense will actually regress this season. And this is a little controversial to say. But again, although I like the youth and even the talent of Mr. Trubisky, this offensive line, I just think last year they played the absolute best they could play. I think you got the best out of Charles Leno Jr. I think you got the best out of Bobby Massey. I think you got damn good out of Cody Whitehair, and I think you're going to have bigger problems, especially with the Packers adding in the defensive talent that they did in your division, the Lions adding the defensive talent that they did in your division. Statistically, I expect a regression from the Chicago Bears. However, bro, prediction number 2, the Bears start 4-1. I look at this Chicago Bears schedule. Firstly, you host the Green Bay Packers to open the season. Then you go to the Denver Broncos, you go to the Washington Redskins, you host the Minnesota Vikings, and you host the Oakland Raiders. That should be a 4-1 start. You should beat the Packers. You should either go to Denver or Washington and win, maybe even both, but I'll say one and you'll trip up the other one. And then you guys beat the Vikings and the Raiders. To me, that's 4-1. And then you go into the bye week and you're saying we're Super Bowl contenders. However, bold prediction number 3, the Bears then slow down. Week 17 will be for the NFC North title, and the Bears lose to the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's going to come down to week 17. Right now, I have the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears on top of the NFC North with the Packers right there. Okay, they are right there, but I think with the way I went through the schedule and everything, it came down to that week 17 game and the tiebreaker there. If the Bears win that game, they sweep the Vikings. They win the NFC North with a better record than the Minnesota Vikings at 10-6. However, I have them losing and finishing with a record of, we're going to get into in a moment, but you can probably figure it out. Win-loss predictions for the Chicago Bears. So with that said, best case scenario, I'm wrong, and the Chicago Bears keep doing what they did last season. I mean, the one thing about this team that we can't deny and we have to look out for, they were able to beat very good teams last year. You saw them really dismantle the LA Rams late into the season. It was a big game, a game that the Rams really wanted to win. They sucked them into Chicago, they sucked the life out of them, and they won that nasty game. They are a team that is capable of winning very difficult games, and the schedule is more difficult, and that does scare me. But knowing that the Bears are a team that's capable of getting it done, that's something that I definitely still have to give credence to. And I'll say best case scenario is 12-4. Worst case scenario, 8-8. Again, the offense takes even a larger step back than I'm anticipating, and David Montgomery just isn't ready for the NFL yet, and they go 8-8. Now, my prediction is 9-7. A lot of Bears fans won't like this, but again, I think every single team in your division you can expect to win more games than they did last year. The Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings, every single one of them, to me, will win more games than they did last year. Moreover, last year you faced the AFC East. Okay, this year instead you're facing the AFC West. Okay, where you're facing the Chiefs and the Chargers. Those are two difficult teams right there. And the Broncos and the Raiders will be improved. And like I said, you could trip up in Denver and lose to Denver. They're going to be a better team than they were last year. Moreover, you guys are also facing the NFC East this year. And, you know, the NFC East isn't that difficult, but the Cowboys and Eagles will give you problems, especially considering the fact that you will travel to Philadelphia and play Philadelphia in Philadelphia. You also finished first in the NFC North last season, so now you have the privilege of facing the New Orleans Saints and facing the LA Rams again, but this time you're facing the Rams in LA as opposed to facing them in Chicago. The schedule is more difficult, and this is what happens when you win your division. And I did not see enough offensive improvements. If you guys would have went out in the offseason and brought in some more offensive talent that I thought you really needed, you would have been fine. But to me, the Bears just rested on their laurels a little bit too much. Now, if David Montgomery and Riley Ridley, they come in and they have a huge impact, yes, it could still be a 12-4 campaign for the Chicago Bears, but I'll stick with my 9-7 prediction. But again, I think it would come down to week 17. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the 2019 Chicago Bears. What are your thoughts? Comment down below. I want to know. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, to subscribe. And until next time, this has been MJ of Sports Fan Entertainment, and I'm out. See you all later.